لا إله إلا الله.
So we had a discussion last time, bro.
Yes.
So let's carry on.
Sure.
This
Yes.
time around.
Yeah.
And I thought let's talk about some really basic foundational things.
Yeah.
So which we can discuss, try to get somewhere with, and maybe someone watching can benefit from too.
Sure.
So if you don't, should I begin with the?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. Yeah, feel free.
So I've looked into atheism to an extent.
Yeah.
I sort of understand the basic philosophy, the basic thinking behind it. Right? Correct me if I'm wrong. As far as I understand it, there's a slight distinction between atheism and naturalism.
Maybe I'm not the best person qualified to say that, but I think there is a difference.
But speaking of atheism, would you say atheists deny the existence of God?
Yes, I think atheism, as far as I'm aware, does deny the existence of a deity. It doesn't just say that we don't know. It goes one step further and says that it doesn't exist.
And you yourself would hold that position at the moment.
Well, this is quite difficult because I can't say with certainty
in
that
between.
I hold that position, but I would hold the position that it either doesn't exist, or if it does exist, it definitely isn't what the Abrahamic religions say it is. That it's a
So would you say you're more agnostic?
With regards to the existence of God, I would say I'm maybe more agnostic.
Okay,
That's it.
Okay, that being the case, so let's begin here, I guess. Would you appreciate if I was to say that certain realities we are aware of in life, for example, morality, moral truths, human consciousness, human rationality, our cognitive faculties which lead us to truth, concepts such as truth and falsehood, good and evil, would you agree that these things I've just mentioned can only truly be made sense of through the existence of God? Assuming what you said your position to be that there may be a creator.
That's a very difficult question. These realities that you talk about, rationality,
Let's stick with one. Take rationality.
morality. I mean, whichever one you want to pick. You can't just prove morality because of morality. There is. You could say that there is something behind it. There is some. You can explain. I think you can explain it with a God, but I don't think that's a very reasonable explanation in my opinion.
Okay. So let's take rationality for example.
Yeah.
Human cognition, right?
Yeah.
We know we're rational. We assume it so even with the discussions we have it with the basis that we are rational beings, right? I mean, if we were to say I may not be, even if you entertain the idea I may not be rational, then you can never be certain of your rational faculties. Therefore, it's pointless having discussions even like this.
I wouldn't go that far. I would say that maybe I'm uncertain about my rational faculties, but I can still have a conversation.
So okay, let's clarify. So would you say you're uncertain about your conclusions, or are you uncertain about the ability, the processing faculties to arrive at conclusions? What are you uncertain about?
Okay, maybe I'm more uncertain about the process itself.
The process itself.
Yeah, the process.
So that means
the process,
so that means right now, the way you're reasoning can be wrong or can be flawed.
It could very well be.
So for example, you hold the belief that you're an atheist. That could be false. That could be just based on nothing. Just because if you can't be, because you concluded you're an atheist or somewhat of an atheist, and you've rationally made that conclusion, right? You've come to that conclusion. You haven't just chosen just for the sake of doing it, right?
No, I mean, experiences and, science, evolution and so forth.
It's processed through here, obviously. Because even if you use science, the whole scientific method is dependent upon your ability to reason upon your observations, right?
Sure.
So, or even your experiences, you reason upon your experiences and then come to conclusions in it. So the fact that you've come to the conclusion that you're an atheist or somewhat of an atheist, right, is based on a rational process. So if you're saying that you can't be certain of your rational processes anymore, then you can't really conclude anything anymore.
I wouldn't agree with that. I think you can be uncertain about your rational process, but still make some kind of conclusion because that's just the way things are. That's the way human beings would be.
Sure, but what would be the validity? Yeah. So now, so for example, you made another claim that...
I know I'm being difficult, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just trying to get... It's good for understanding.
Yeah.
So you made a claim that I'm not sure of my rational processes.
Yes. I'm
Now
not
that
completely
claim
certain.
itself, are you sure of that claim?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you want me to go one step further,
Do you see? So we have to begin somewhere.
Sure,
You have
sure.
to have as a foundational thing that you are rational.
but this is one other problem I have with the religious perspective, especially the Abrahamic, Jewish, Christian, Islamic perspective, is that if we don't have this base, then we can't start. Kind of.
No, I would disagree with that.
Yeah.
So I would say we can start, and we are starting.
We
now.
are- we've already- yeah, we already
So my
have,
position is this. Let me just clarify, just so I don't come across wrong.
Sure, yeah.
Is that whatever your worldview is,
Yeah.
you're a rational being, and I'm a rational person, and we can have discourse. Yeah, our rational faculties may get things wrong through the process, but eventually we have the ability to attain truth. Right? That's what science is. Scientists sometimes get things wrong, but more observations, more study leads to something that's more closer to the truth eventually. Right?
Usually.
Yeah. So I would assume we are rational as a foundation, right? Now, but you're saying that you're not certain of your ability or your rational faculties or your processes. And I
Yeah.
would argue that you would have to be to even maintain atheism, or even to make the claim that you're not certain of your rational faculties, you'll have to be rational. Because that itself is a truth claim, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
which,
okay.
can we agree that we have to assume rationality as
Well, it's implied, it's implicit, it's part of the whole thing. That's why we
absolutely.
started. Otherwise,
here's the thing, if you were to say that,
otherwise I wouldn't even want to have this. I'll be talking about like
it will make no sense you and have
like
you having a
whatever.
discussion.
Yeah, exactly.
It will make no
I
sense
talk about
you being-
ice creams and
exactly.
yeah,
It will make no sense you being in Speaker's Corner or doing what you do in life.
yeah.
So-
Yeah.
So it's needed, right? It's a necessary first principle, if you like, foundational concept.
It's
Axiom. It's an axiom.
it's implied. It's part of the whole what it means to be a human being.
Yeah, it's necessary for us to have any intellectual discourse.
I
So-
think you can use that word. Yeah.
Okay, so we can agree to that understanding.
Okay, yeah, we can.
Okay, good. Now here's the thing. If we both agree it's a basic, foundational, axiomatic belief, understanding that we are rational, it's true by definition. It's true by its very reality, right? But the point is, what I want to engage on, I'm not challenging it,
Yeah.
because most people think that Muslims or religious people challenge the atheist rational faculties and say, oh, you can't account for rationality, therefore you're not rational, or therefore you can't be atheist. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, let's now just dabble in this inquiry, if you like.
Yeah.
This human rationality, what best explains this or makes sense of this faculty that we're using and we accept to be true? Right? So what worldview best makes sense of it, what I'm saying in other words? So Islam or atheism? That's the question I want to, I guess, address first.
Right. Okay.
So on the atheist worldview, how would you account for your ability that you're exercising right now to reason and understand what I'm saying and process it and then to give me a response and to try attain truth? How would you account for these faculties of atheism?
Well, for these so-called rational faculties, for me personally, or let's say as an atheist, I would compare them to, for example, what other people are saying, or I would compare what you say to, what science has proved, or what I've experienced personally in my own life, for example, if it's something about human beings or the way human beings behave. And then I would kind of reason from there. I'll be like, okay, well, what he says about human beings does make sense because I've experienced this, and science also confirms this.
Yeah.
But and I can make sense of it.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, but
Yeah.
we accept that it is what it is. But what I'm saying is that the worldview you adopt of atheism,
Yeah.
from that lens, from those lenses, from that perspective, how do you make sense of this reality of human cognition and rationality and the ability to attain truth and falsehood? How do you make, like, for example, on atheism, naturalism in specific, the idea is that everything that exists now, we touched upon this last time briefly, everything that is in existence is a result of just blind, random physical processes
Yeah.
that have been taking place over millions of years. There's no intentionality behind it. There is nothing behind it. It's just random. It's an accident.
Right.
And they're dead physical processes from that perspective.
Yeah.
So from that understanding, now, how would you say from these blind, random physical processes, how has human cognition, which is ordered and is a process of thinking, how has that emerged from these random physical processes? And it's a conscious process as well, mind you. We'll keep the
Yeah.
consciousness aside. We won't bring that into discussion.
Well, I know. You're talking about consciousness and you're talking about rationality.
Just let's stick to rational, the
Sure.
process. Keep it simple. Because otherwise you get too technical.
I
So
know,
basically what I'm asking is, how do you go from blind, random, non-rational physical processes to a rational, ordered, rational human mind, basically?
Well, I know, but your assumption is that we are 100% rational and that we have, purpose and intention.
No, but we accepted that at least to start off with, we have enough. Our rational faculties are ordered enough for us to understand truth and to attain truth.
Yeah.
So that baseline, how would you make sense of that?
But that's what I'm saying. I know this might be getting boring for the viewers, but there's an implied position that you have to make sense of it.
No, I'm not saying we do.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
Yeah.
Even if you say what it just is,
Yeah.
fine, that's your position. I won't argue against that. Let me just clarify.
Yeah.
So even if this point you would say, bro, I'm rational and it just is. I can't make sense of it.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
That's fine. But I'm saying if we were to engage in that foundational worldview discussion, could you make sense of it from atheism, or can you not?
Well, more recently, through my readings of, even within atheism and more like religious traditions, I am seeing more of let's say, a mystery. There is some mystery to it, that there are some things that just even me as an atheist, or atheism in general, science or materialism just can't grasp. So there are some doubts there when it comes to my rational faculties and how seemingly just randomness can give rise to so-called rational.
You know what's interesting? Darwin, I know it's a tangent.
Yeah.
Some atheists bring in the evolutionary angle, right?
Yeah.
Although if you look at the recent studies, you have Anthony O'Hare, who's published a book called Beyond Evolution. I believe he's an atheist or not a religious person, by Oxford Press. There's Thomas Nagel. He has a book on mind and cosmos. What the research is showing is that purely from a naturalistic evolutionary perspective, you can't account for human consciousness or our ordered rational faculties, right? Because there's a whole discussion on this, and we could discuss that later maybe, right? But the point being, and this is why even Darwin himself, he made a very interesting statement. He wrote in a letter, I believe in 1881, he said, "But then with me the horror doubt arises whether the convictions of man's mind could be trusted or are reliable at all. If I'm paraphrasing, if they have just evolved from, a lower life form. Like you would, just in the same way you wouldn't trust the convictions of a monkey's mind, for example, right? So he himself had these doubts regarding human rationality, right? So what I will posit here, what I would suggest is, if you look at the Islamic worldview, the Islamic tradition, foundationally, right? Let's bring the focus on this side. Islam has a very simple and beautiful answer when it comes to these realities, such as human cognition, morality, truth and falsehood, these metaphysical concepts, principles, and so on and so forth. And that is that there is an all-powerful creator, who we call Allah, who's God. He created everything. He's all-powerful. He maintains everything and he sustains everything. And he created everything in existence and human beings as well. And human beings were a special creation, and human beings were created with some special abilities. For example, in one of the chapters of the Quran, God says that He taught man bayan, which is speech, intelligent speech, right? Also, there's other parts of the Quran which make reference to the human intellect and reasoning and rationality, right? So what we would say is God created the human being and He gave him special faculties, the ability to reason and to assess the world around him and to observe it and to study it. Why? There's a why as well. Why? Because when he does this, it would lead him to God. It would lead him to the worship of God, right? So that's that very profound answer there that God gave us. God is all powerful. He gave us rational faculties. Very simple, eternally coherent. And the why, one of the whys can be, one of the wisdoms can be, so we can reflect over things, reason over things, engage in discussions, which would lead us to His existence. Right? So from the Islamic perspective, can you at least appreciate that there is a very simple, nice, comprehensive answer?
It's very simple, but I wouldn't. It doesn't make it. No, it makes sense and it's very simple. It sounds very elegant, but
quite poetic is all from that.
Poetic, yeah, but it doesn't fit what's going on in the world. It doesn't apply to.
Well, that particular understanding of human rationality.
Yeah, it doesn't take account of what's actually happening in the world in real life.
Oh no, so you're talking about other elements of the tradition. We could talk about those, but I'm just talking purely from that human rationality, our ability to have intellectual discourse, communicate. From that angle,
on that very basic level, then it makes.
Now, when it comes to the overall revelation, we can discuss that and other things, hopefully as well. So is that? Can we move on to another point?
Sure. Yeah.
So that being said, when it comes to the belief in God, right? Now most atheists would say, I don't know what your position is, you can tell me your position, but they'll say, prove to me God exists. Give me some tangible physical evidence for God's existence. Would you make such a claim as well when it comes to speaking to a person of faith, a Muslim?
I think that's a very potent argument, but it's not the only one. I would steer the conversation more along the lines of, if Islam, what it says about human beings and what it says about God and what it says about revelation and so forth, if that is so true, then why do we live in such a world, in a world that has so much contradiction and so much when compared to the Islamic beliefs and the ideas, is so contradicting?
For example?
Well, one basic example is you said that God gave us a rational faculty. If that was the case, then why are there so many people living in a very irrational way? And they're living in a very maybe emotionally charged way. They might be angry all the time. They might be, living in a very non-rational way all the time.
But the thing is, there's a distinction there. That what you're saying doesn't undercut the fact that we have cognitive faculties which are ordered in a particular way to allow us to come to conclusions and to understand truth. How human beings exercise these abilities will be different, right? For example, you and me hold two different positions. We use the same type of cognitive faculties, but we have two different worldviews. In the same way, many other people use it in many other ways. We can discuss that point. We touched upon the problem of evil in the last discussion we had as well briefly. But what I want to go to first, and the video's there so they can go and watch that video online, whoever's watching this. But what I want to touch upon first is, what I was asking you is that the atheist would come to the Muslim and say, give me evidence for God's existence, right? But that assumes a few things. Number one, it assumes that science is the only way to truth. If they want physical evidence, tangible evidence. Number two, it assumes that God is a part of the physical reality or is physical himself. Both of these things aren't true. For example, we know science is a method that we use. Right? For example, I believe it's Bertrand Russell who said, science is an attempt to discover by means of observation and reasoning based upon it particular facts about the world. So what he was saying is that science tries to, using the method of science, you observe physical reality and then you reason upon it. Again, going back to the point of reason, which is integral to the scientific method. And then you try to understand the physical world around you. That's what science tries to do. It can't tell you about moral truths. It can't tell you about metaphysical realities. It can't tell you about even mathematics, for example, some mathematical truths, although it uses these things. Right? So the point is, science can't tell you all truth. And when it comes to God, God is a metaphysical reality. God is beyond the physical. In Islam, we believe God is the creator of everything and he's distinct and disjoint from his creation. He's not part of his physical creation. And that concept is quite intuitive as well to the human being. Purely from a rational perspective. I mean, if I was to ask you, does it make sense that if there is an all-powerful creator, that he is not going to be a part of his created physical creation?
It makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
I would say it makes sense because it's a part of our very nature. Right? Whereas if I was to tell you, no, God is a man who is about 6'5", has beard this length and eyes like this, there you go. Your expression says it well. It's very counterintuitive, right?
Sure.
From a rational, emotional, intellectual, innate perspective, right? So what we say that the concept, this is another point, the concept of God in Islam makes sense and it's in line with the human nature. And it fits like a well-tailored suit, but we'll discuss these points after. Point being that in Islam, so the point is, God is not physical, okay? Therefore, when it comes to the existence of God, we don't engage, or we shouldn't engage in trying to prove God through physical means. Right? Now, when it comes to logical, rational argumentation, right, are there arguments for God's existence? I would argue there's many arguments for God's existence. Very strong arguments for God's existence. Some of these arguments are God shares with us in the Quran. I'll share one with you today as well. But however, the belief, what we need to realize that belief first starts from a foundational perspective, right? So in our philosophy, in our tradition, belief is not something that's acquired from the outside. The roots of belief are within the human nature, right? So we believe God placed the belief in him, or aspects of the belief in him, within the human self, within the soul. Now, what's proof of this? I mean, all you have to do is you can argue in two ways. All you have to do is look at world history, look at the world today. Not universally, but majority of the people on the face of this earth throughout history have always believed in a cause, a creator, a supreme being. Sure, right? So that alludes to the fact that it's a part of human nature. It's built-in element of the human being itself.
But doesn't make it accurate, but...
No, but yeah. When the majority, for example, if I was to say to you, is it absolutely wrong to kill an innocent child? Even as an atheist, you'd say absolutely yes. Or you may disagree.
Well,
Would
yeah.
you feel? Let's put what you think rationally. Would you feel it's wrong?
Of course, I'd feel that way. Yeah.
Majority of the world would agree to us.
Yeah.
Right? Not all. There are some crazy people, but most will agree.
Or some cultures that are not.
Yeah. So what we can say safely is that some of these principles of right and wrong are natural to the human being. It's a part of our nature. How we don't understand, but it's a part of our nature.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
In the same way, the belief in God we see throughout history is a part of human nature. So, from the Islamic tradition, it sort of complements this, because in Islam we're told of the fitrah. For example, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that every child is born on the fitrah, this pure nature. Right? We know in the Quran God says turn towards that pure nature, that fitrah that God created. The word is fitrah, the pure nature, the essence. From a Western philosophical perspective, and you've already appreciated this is fine, we don't have to go here, but if you were to go to the Western philosophical tradition, you can almost see it as a foundational, self-evident truth, a basic belief, right? Just like the real world is real for science, okay? So that's where belief begins for the Muslims, right? And I think it's a very strong position to hold, because we're not straight away going to this logical discourse and realm, which we can. I will share some of that too.
Sure, yeah.
But what you can appreciate is that God has given us many layers or many different angles that lead us to Him. So there's that foundational aspect, then there's revelation, then there's the engagement of the rational intellect as well, right? Now, we okay to move on to the rational?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you one rational, very powerful argument God makes in the 52nd chapter of the Quran, verse 35 and 36. God says, were they created by nothing? Or were they the creators of themselves? Or did they create the heavens and the earth? Heavens and the earth. Rather, they are not certain. Now, when we look at these verses, there are some logical implications here. There are some logical possibilities. Can something come from nothing? Can something make itself? Or can something be made by something else made? These are the three that are pointed out. And there's a fourth one that's unstated. We'll touch upon that later. So let's work through these rationally now. Let's engage in this level. Can something come from nothing? Let's take the universe. Could the universe come from nothing?
Well, I mean, I would say almost nothing, but it's not nothing.
Oh, there has to be something.
Yeah.
Because even as an atheist, you would agree.
Almost nothing is something. So yeah.
Exactly. Because nothing by itself has no potential. Nothing itself is nothing. Although in Islam, what we say, God is the only being that has the ability and power to create from nothing. He's the one that can do that, right? So from nothing, nothing comes. Can something create itself? Think about this one. I can give you the answer, because it's enjoyable to go through this process yourself. So.
Right, yeah. Well,
there's something special about the Quran, that God, He engages with the human intellect, and He lets us take those steps, rational steps, to come to the conclusions. So, can something create itself?
Well, no, I can't create myself.
Could the universe create itself?
Well, if I can't create myself, then I guess the universe.
Because you understand the very basic logical principle there, which is that to create yourself, you have to already exist. And if you already exist, then you're not creating yourself, you're already there. So it's a paradox. So not only, if you see the first option from nothing, it's impossible. But this one is not only impossible, but it's a logical contradiction. It's beyond impossible, right? Then the next option, can something created create something else? So for example, God says, were they the ones that created the heavens and the earth? So can something created create something else?
Well, I mean, my father and mother created me, so
that's possible, right? It's good. But the problem with this option is, if you look a bit deeper, then you can ask the question, well, what created that something that created that something? And then you could keep going, well, what created that something that created that something that created that something that created that something? And if you went on forever, an infinite chain of creators and causes, we wouldn't be here today, right? Because you can't traverse the infinite. You've probably come across the problem of the infinite regress, right?
I've heard about it.
Okay. For example, a simple analogy would be, there's buses there. Say I want to go home on the bus, but I don't have a pound. I need a pound to get on the bus. I say, my friend, give me a pound. They're like, I'll give you a pound, no problem, because I'm a nice guy, but I don't have a pound, so I need to get a pound from someone behind me. And if that person said the same thing and that went on forever, would I ever get on the bus? Would that event ever take place? No. Right? So there has to be that first cause that gave the first pound in that example. The analogy is not perfect.
Yeah, there has to be a first cause too, yeah.
So it breaks down that understanding that something created something else. So what's the fourth only possibility that's left? We've gone through all of the other three.
That there's a creator.
There's an uncaused cause.
Well,
that's not created. Right? So that's the conclusion we come to ourselves just using our minds. I mean, can you think of any other possibility?
No, I can't think of any other possibilities. I know where you're going with what you're saying, but I mean, I would say that I'm not really well versed in the actual science of it. I think for me,
Just use the reason.
if I could kind of just slightly move the conversation a bit, I would say that the reason I became an atheist was not so much because of the science. It was more along the lines of that I didn't feel religion really addressed the issues that I had experienced as a person.
Yeah. We talked about this last time, the personal experience.
The personal experience.
We're going to go to that
because I don't think even Islam or Christianity or Judaism, I don't think they really address the person as an individual.
Would you like some gum?
No, I'm fine, thank you. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to have my mouth's drying. Okay, we'll address those points quickly for you, right? And like we said, we touched upon this briefly at the end last time. That's the personal thing that really matters. But before we go there, can we at least acknowledge that from a rational, because remember, it's not a scientific argument that was shared with you.
Yeah.
It's a very argument based on principles, logical principles, things that are intuitive and understandable. Can we at least appreciate that based on that argument, that there is only one conclusion, that there has to be an on-course course before we move on?
Okay, sure, yeah.
Okay,
I can see that. Okay. It's just...
I know it's an emotional thing for you.
Yeah, because, well, it's very emotional, that's one thing. Also, I
if you don't want this section shared, we won't put it out, because I know it's a personal thing.
Yeah, maybe it's best,
Bro, we can cut it now. This is a very beautiful book. I really encourage you to read, bro. It's called The Divine Reality by a guy named Hamza Jodsis. I know him personally. He's a close friend. It's a phenomenal book, and he goes into these things. But if you really think about it, these blessings that you have, bro, you cannot enumerate them. Just one, just the heartbeat, let alone your eyesight. If I was to tell you, I'll give you £100,000, can we surgically remove your eyes?
I know it's a bit simplistic though, because life also has a lot of suffering.
Yeah, there are tests and trials.
So I guess maybe I should just clarify my position, because I would say that the main reason for me being an atheist is having to come to understanding of that life suffering. I realized that God cannot exist, or at least the kind of God that even you say, there's 99 attributes of God.
More than that.
And maybe more than that, and that God isn't only good. But from what I've experienced, having so many negative experiences, if God does exist, then he can't be a good God. He can't be a loving God.
But first thing we can establish, God's existence is not contingent upon this problem.
Yeah.
Number one.
But love is an attribute of God in Islam.
Who God is, that's what we can discuss.
But love is an attribute of God in Islam, right? And mercy and so forth.
Yeah, he's al-wadud, he's excessively loving. Yeah. His love is the purest form of love.
Yeah. Well,
but here it all boils down to this. Because you're assuming you should have the ability to understand the wisdom behind everything that takes place in reality. That's what your assumption is.
As a person, as an individual.
Yeah, I understand that.
As a human, any human, I think, if they don't have that, I think that is in many ways very dissatisfying.
But I'll be very honest with you. Yeah. I believe that's a very arrogant position as a human to hold. I'll tell you why.
It may be. Maybe I'm an arrogant person as well. Yeah. But
that's the problem with us, not with God. Then. That's the key thing we need to understand. The point is, the reality is, God is God. We are humans. If we knew what God knows, then we would be God. Do you see the point? There will be no difference in a way from that attribute perspective. Yeah. The point is, it's about having humility and understanding who you are, bro. Because you didn't create yourself. You don't sustain yourself. He's the one that's doing everything. And he's telling you he loves you more than your mother. He's telling you he's the most loving. He's telling you he's the most merciful. He's telling you he's the most wise. That there's wisdom behind these things. Don't worry, you're in good hands. He's telling you this. If still then you want to have that position where I want to know everything, I should know everything, then that's a position of arrogance.
It may be, but otherwise I find that it's a dissatisfying position. It's not a satisfying.
Satisfaction's a side note, right? As human beings, we'll have times in our life where we're not satisfied, right? Like I said earlier, there will be times in my life where I may not be satisfied with the complete understanding of what happened to me 6 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a side point. That just makes us what human is an imperfect being.
I know, but for me, and I think for maybe...
Do you understand the perspective of that level of humility from that angle?
I know, but
satisfaction and that thing is two different things.
I know, but what could happen in that case is if you become humble in that way, then you're kind of... You could easily fall into the trap of,
dismiss everything.
You're kind of being quite dismissive about it. Well, it happened.
You're intelligent enough not to, right? I'm telling you, the correct understanding is this, bro. You desire to know why things happen in your life. You want to know. You hope to know. You pray to know. And if it's good for you, you will know. God will tell you, right? But no, have the external, this knowledge that He will give you what's good for you. If knowing is going to be bad for you, He'll keep it away from you. And have confidence in that reality. That's the key, bro. And have humility from that perspective. Having humility in that, what I've just said, and keeping that as an understanding and accepting, is not to just dismiss everything and say, that's fine. No, you're human. You're going to be human, right? You're going to have experiences. You will be upset. You will be sad. The Prophet, peace be upon him, like I said earlier, he cried at the death of his son. He didn't question God because he knew God better than most of us, all of us, right? However, the point is, have the higher understanding, and then yes, you're human, you'll have experiences, but have that strength in that higher understanding. That's the key.
That seems like blind faith to me. Yeah.
But there's no faith question.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it internally consistent that God, He's all-knowing, He's all-powerful, and He is aware of everything, and He has the picture and we have the picture. That's internally coherent. There's nothing wrong with the understanding of God.
Yeah, but as human beings, we want to know. We want to understand. We want to go further. We want
Here's what you're doing, bro.
We want to be more satisfied. We want to find the answers.
I agree.
Yeah.
100%. We're inquisitive by nature.
Because otherwise, we wouldn't be here. That's part of being a human being.
What am I saying to you, bro? Yeah. I'm not saying dismiss that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying let go of that.
Yeah.
It's a
it sounds to me like.
Okay, but I'm not. Let me clarify. I am not telling you to do that.
Yeah.
Even me, myself, there are things that happen in my life which I still want to know the answers to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's there. That's our nature. Keep that. No one's telling you to remove it. You can't remove it.
Yeah.
That's what makes you human. All I'm saying is this: have the external appreciation of who your Creator is, knowing that there is wisdom behind things. He knows everything. I don't. I want to know. Keep wanting to know. But realize that if it's good for you, He'll let you know. He'll tell you. If it's not good for you, He'll keep it away from you. Right? Have that confidence. Right? These are two different things that we're mixing right.
I know, yeah. I don't have that confidence. I don't.
Yeah, but that's what you need. Right? And I really encourage you, really think about this. Yeah. So I guess that's it. We can carry on discussing in the future discussions we can have. But really think about that point and read the Quran this time. Yeah. Try getting a copy. Abdul Halim's translation is very good in English. Yeah. Read that; it's very good. Otherwise, you have some old archaic ones which are very difficult to navigate. Read Abdul Halim's phenomenal translation. It's a pleasure. Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you. God bless you.